Manage stakeholder engagement. I would like to think about this process as no big deal. Why? Because this is the second to the last process in the PMP guide. And you probably already know almost all of the ITTOs in this process. So let's take a look. This process, managed stakeholder engagement, is one in which the project manager is proactive and pragmatic, getting the plan accomplished. If you had a plan for how to engage stakeholders, this is where you do it. So it's managing stakeholder engagement as previously planned. Our main goal is to manage the stakeholders' engagement and keep the stakeholder engaged. It's as simple as that. If you need to have a conversation, have the conversation. If you need to have a meeting, have a meeting. If you need to deliver results that will get your stakeholder back on track, do that. Whatever the action that is necessary and previously agreed upon in the stakeholder engagement plan, this is where it's done by the project manager and the team supporting the efforts. So let's take a look at the inputs to manage stakeholder engagement. 1, project management plan. Do you know why? Let's hear it. I'm sure you already know it. It's because you have your stakeholder engagement plan as well as other plans. Which other plan do you think is really highly needed here? There is one plan that I would be surprised if you did not tell me was in this particular bullet. Did you get it? If you said communications management plan, bravo. Absolutely. So your stakeholder engagement plan and communications management plan are definitely both needed. Your communications management plan gives guidance on how to communicate. And of course, you're going to be doing a whole lot of communicating to engage stakeholders. The method, the format, the technologies for stakeholder communications are talked about here. And you could also have your risk management plan. Remember, stakeholders have risk appetites. Some of them have very low tolerance for risks. You want to be aware of those. And that's a way you can engage them. Some of them have high tolerance for risk. But you want to know what your stakeholders' hot buttons are so you know where to pull them in, when to pull them in. We also have our change management plan as mentioned here as a possible input to this process under the project management plan. Now, all of the project management plan is fair game, and that's why I don't get too bothered when I see a laundry list of bullets. I've said this time and time again because I can hear alarm bells going off in students' heads, wondering, Phil, do I need to cram this stuff? I think this is probably the 4th or 5th time I've said it. People need to hear things 7 times before it sticks. So I'll say it again. On your PMP exam, I do not expect you to have the namby-pamby questions as to what aspect of the project management plan is an input. Because the PMI know that any part of the project management plan could be fair game. I expect more situational type questions. Okay, enough said. The next input is project documents. Again, don't cram it, but just think. What could be an input here? The change log. Stakeholders want to know what happened to my change request. I put in a change request. Was it approved? Was it rejected? Is it on hold? You need to communicate to the appropriate stakeholders the outcome of their change request. We also have the issue log. If there are any issues on the project, we need to examine those issues and iron them out with stakeholders. If there need to be any assigned action items, we need to update those in our issue log. So you'll see it being updated in this process. To update it, think of it as an input. Lessons learned register. Lessons learned from previous projects that help us in engaging stakeholders. You definitely want that as an input. Lessons learned could help you manage stakeholder engagement. And of course, The stakeholder register itself needs to be an input to this process. So think about your logs, think about your registered. So think about your logs, think about your registers. Think about the change log, the issue log, and your popular registers. Project management plan, project documents, EFs and OPAs. You know what I'm talking about. You probably just hit the fast forward button. Now we're at the end of the course, we can be honest. But anyway, let's move on here to our tools and techniques. Expert judgment. First tool and technique, you need expertise. If you've been there, done that, or you've got people who have worked with certain stakeholders, who have worked on certain projects with them, they can give you expertise, advice as to how to manage, how to handle the affairs in this process. Understanding the politics, understanding the power play could give you huge leverage. You want people who understand the environment, who understand the culture, and people who are experts in communicating. I once had a stakeholder who said, Phil, we've nominated person X to be our project manager on this project. Now, his attitude towards gaining knowledge is not as positive, but he definitely has a power position among the customers of this project. In other words, he can speak the language of the customer. And for that reason, he was made a project manager, even though his attitude towards learning project management was not necessarily that positive, or I should say, going for PMP exam training was not very positive. And even though the organization wanted people to get certified, because he could speak the language of the stakeholder, he was far ahead of the curve. Influence is everything, folks. Being able to be the expert that knows about a particular customer could land you huge projects and huge wins. The next tool and technique is communication skills. Do I need to say more? What are we doing? Engaging stakeholders. How do you interact? You communicate. Communication could be in different dimensions, but the skills are very important. The ability to actively listen, the ability to thoroughly encode, the ability to thoroughly decode. It's all part of it. Conversations, issue identification, meetings, progress reporting, surveys. All of these are things that all of these require impeccable communication to pass across the point and to engage stakeholders. Our next tool and technique is interpersonal and team skills. When dealing with stakeholders, it's very important that the project manager is able to identify conflict, understand the conflict, and know the power and political play to resolve that conflict. The project manager should make sure that conflicts between stakeholders are resolved in an efficient and timely fashion. Also, the project manager and the team may find that they need to leverage cultural awareness. Being aware of the culture, the environment in which the project is taking place is important. Understanding cultural differences of stakeholders. The ability to negotiate, the ability to observe stakeholders and converse with stakeholders is part of interpersonal and team skills. Being politically aware, political awareness, also a big plus when it comes to communicating and engaging stakeholders. The next tool and technique is ground rules. Ground rules establish good and acceptable behavior, and this could be in a team charter. The team charter sets the pace for good behavior on a project. The last tool and technique here is meetings. We need meetings to meet and discuss and interact with stakeholders. Don't forget, people on the project team, they're stakeholders. We could use meetings to resolve issues, make decisions, have lessons learned, do a project kickoff. In the world of Agile, do sprint planning. and all those other ceremonies in the world of Agile, and also do a status update. Let's take a look at our outputs from this process. First of all, you could have a change request. You know what that is, and you know the process that it needs to go through. Every change request, you could think of it as going through the what process? Come on, this is the second to the last process. Surely you know this. Of course you did. Good job performing a great change control. We also have here project management plan updates. We expect those two big ones that I told you, your stakeholder engagement plan and your communications management plan. Those could be updated. We also have here project documents updates. Remember your logs and your registers. Just think about CILS, SILS, when it comes to those documents that carry weight in this process. C for changelog, I for issue log, L for lessons learned, register, and S for stakeholder register. And that concludes our review of the Manage Stakeholder Engagement process.